Two absolutely outrageous stories for this video. First of all, the National Crime Agency is investigating South Yorkshire Police over serious allegations against officers into the sexual abuse of children in Rotherham. So they don't even trust the police force to investigate themselves. More about that in a second. And also a massive, massive risk to free speech, which I'll come back to and surface and platform here a video by Free Speech Union where a Labour council is looking to ban what you can say in public. And if we're not careful, this will roll out across the country. More about that in a minute. Let's move to the first story. Oh, and please do subscribe if you like these brutally honest updates as an alternative to the mainstream media. Thank you so much. We are just under 800,000 subscribers, and I'm really excited. So thank you very much. Let's move to this first story here, shall we? National Crime Agency is taking over an investigation into allegations that South Yorkshire police officers have abused children in Rotherham. So this is the state of the UK, people. This is not a rant nor a right-wing anything. This is reported in the BBC. This is the National Crime Agency investigating a police force for abusing children. BBC reported in July that 5 women were exploited by grooming gangs as children, and they said that they were abused by police officers in the town in the 90s and the 2000s. South Yorkshire Police initially said that it would look at the crimes, but subsequently faced calls to be removed from the investigation in the interests of transparency. Now, who'd have thought that the police force themselves would not be trusted to investigate themselves into their own wrongdoing? So now the NCA says that it's going to ensure that victims remain at the heart of the investigation. This is the sheer state that we are at the moment. We need the National Crime Agency to investigate these things. 3 former police officers have thus far been arrested in connection with these allegations. Assistant Chief Constable Barnett said the force has requested the NCA take over the investigation. So this is at the request in the interest of transparency, public interest, so that everyone is aware of it. Absolutely awful, but that's where we are. Next story, I will play this video for you with Lord Young of Free Speech Union, and it's absolutely a devastating risk to free speech, which you absolutely must pay attention to this, because if something happens in your area, there is a very, very short window in which you have to act. Otherwise, this ban will be enforced and you can be fined just for, say, swearing in public. Absolutely outrageous. Let's have a listen to this, and then I'll explain what the law says about it and why there's such a short time frame, such a risk, and we absolutely need to pay attention to it. Listen to this.
If you think two-tier Kia's war on free speech is getting out of hand, wait until you hear about what a Labour-controlled council in Kent is up to. Last year, they tried to ban swearing in public spaces in Kent. The FSU threatened to take them to court, and they immediately dropped their plans. But this year, they've refined them slightly, and they've done it. They've gone and banned swearing in public places in Kent. So now we're going to challenge that. We need to draw a line in the sand. If we don't stop them in Kent, it won't be long before Labour rolls it out across the rest of the country.
I like free speech, and what I'd say to the free speech people, if you'd like to come down here and meet me, I'll be more than happy to tell you exactly what I think of you. And there might be the odd expletive in it.
Might be some expletives. Wouldn't you then be in breach of your own anti-swearing ban? Well, the Free Speech Union has decided to take up the challenge of this two-tier Labour councillor, and we'll be on Margate Beach at 10:30 on Tuesday morning. See you there, councillor.
And so I'll link this in the description. Please do go and support Free Speech Union. I am a gold member. They've not asked me to do this. It is not sponsored in any way. I freely share this with you and encourage you to go and join. If you value free speech, please support the Free Speech Union. Now, let's take a look at the law here, because they're looking at banning swearing in public. Now, these come about by way of the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act 2014. Under Section 59, a local authority may make a public spaces protection order, which I'll explain a bit more in a minute, if satisfied that reasonable grounds on 2 conditions are met. The first condition being that the activities carried on in a public place within the authority's area have a detrimental effect on the quality of life of those in the locality, or it is likely that the activities will be carried on in a public place within that area and they will have such an effect. So they say, and there's a process to this, but they say the quality of life is going to be affected unless we make this order. Now, you may remember stories of people being arrested for praying silently in their head. That was because they were accused of being in breach of one of these such public space protection orders, meaning that they can't do any kind of protest within a certain distance of, in that case, an abortion center, and that included praying in their head. So, thought crime, you might think. Now, praying in your head is silence. That is a thought crime as such. Now, there's a consultation process they have to go through. They have to gather up evidence to see that there is the need for such a thing. So they have this consultation process. They must consult with the public, the police, relevant stakeholders in the local area, etc. And this is only really, in my view, as effective as the extent with which the public engage with such a consultation. So if you take no interest in what's going on in your area, they'll just do it, regardless of what you think. Then they gather some evidence. So the people that do want this thing, whatever it is, in this case, swearing, to be banned, those people say, we want it to be banned because we think that our quality of life is going to be curtailed by people swearing, and they might swear, so this might be necessary. That will then be evidence, and then they will publicise the fact that they intend to make this public space protection order. Now, it's got to be publicised in accordance with the regulations and so on, and that is the Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014, publication of Public Space Protection Orders, Regulations 2014. So they have to publicise the fact that they intend to make one of these orders. But here's the key. Once it's been published, it then becomes law, and it becomes an offence under Section 67 to fail to comply with such an order. It is an offence for any person to do anything that is prohibited from doing by a public spaces protection order or failing to comply with a requirement to which the person is subject under the public spaces protection order. And a person guilty of an offence under this section is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding level 3 on the standard scale. In English, that means £1,000. So you could be fined up to £1,000 for breaking a public space protection order by swearing, if that's what they've banned in that local area. Now, what can you do about it? Because a lot of people, with respect, are just not paying attention to what goes on in the local area because, let's be fair, everyone's got their lives to lead and they've got lots of other things to do rather than monitoring the local authority's website for public spaces protection orders. But it's absolutely key that you do if you value these things. Now, these can include all sorts of things, such as banning dogs from certain places. Most of them have now banned dogs off lead in many places, including parks, which dog walkers probably find a bit strange because dogs like to go off lead sometimes, but by the by. Many areas have banned drones and all sorts of other things in those areas that they just don't want in that area. All a little bit draconian and dictatorial, but here we are. But the real key here is if you don't challenge these things, they become law and they can last up to 3 years and then they can be varied or extended. But there is a very small window which you have to go to the High Court for to challenge these things. And there are grounds to challenge them. I'll cover those in just a moment. Now, it first must be an interested person who may apply to the High Court in question of the validity of a public spaces protection order or the variation of a public spaces protection order. So in other words, if they're going to make one or amend one, an interested person is an individual who lives in the restricted area or regularly works or visits that area. So they need someone within the area or works in the area and can be represented by somebody else, for example, Free Speech Union or anybody else, to represent their interests and take this to the High Court and challenge this. But they only have, the next bit in yellow, an application here must be made within 6 weeks, beginning the date on which the order was made or variation was made. So you have 6 weeks to go to the High Court to challenge these things. Now, how might you challenge them? First of all, it might be something that is simply not within the power of the local authority to make that order. The High Court might be satisfied the local authority did not have the authority to make that order or variation in the first place. That might include certain prohibitions or requirements imposed by the order that they simply don't have the power to make. It might be that the interests of the applicant have been substantially prejudiced by a failure to comply with this requirement. Examples of this might be where such an order curtails on some of your rights, for example, the right to the freedom of expression. If a public space protection order is infringing on your rights, then it is arguably unlawful and could be successfully challenged and quashed. But only if you make an application or an interested person makes an application within 6 weeks to the High Court to challenge this. And that is what Free Speech Union is talking about doing. Now, it doesn't just apply to the right to the freedom of expression. It applies where the law may already cover something else. And therefore, let's take drones, for example. There is an argument that local authorities don't have the power to override what the Civil Aviation Authority, who is in charge of our airspace and makes the rules and regulations for the airspace, or other legislation that already covers such things. There's an argument that local authorities don't have the power to make such an order to ban certain things in that area. Or at the very least, that because the law already covers those things, it is entirely unnecessary, and therefore it's overlapping and interfering with those laws and should not be made. And so all sorts of things like that, where there's a law that exists or it's already dealt with, or usually it is curtailing your rights and freedoms to an extent that is not proportionate, then the High Court may well quash such an order, but only if you make an application. So I urge you to pay attention to your local authorities' websites. Have a look. I'll link Free Speech Union below as well. Do go and support them. They are fighting the fight for free speech here. I cannot stress that enough, because as Lord Young said here, if we don't stop this in one area, it is only a matter of time before they roll it out across the country. Then before you know it, people are being fined just for saying something offensive to somebody else. Utterly outrageous. It has to be stopped. Please do follow the links. Please do hit that subscribe button down below this video. Help this channel grow. Share this video with somebody. Everybody needs to pay attention to their local authority websites for these public spaces protection orders before they eradicate free speech and who knows what else in future. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you in the next one.